G'day guys, Jason here. Welcome back to Tab Ventures, and today we're going to install a solar panel on my Yellowfin hardtop 7000. So I've just laid out all the stuff on the table here. I'm probably missing a couple of things, but I'll show you through each one as I go through step by step. I've opted for a flexible solar panel. This one's 175 watt. It's a fairly good quality Sunman flexi panel. I'm going to be gluing, or maybe taping. At the moment, I've decided I'm gluing this on top of the hardtop, and it's going to be mounted on a core flute base. That'll be connected to this new Victron Smart Solar charge controller. I've opted for this because it's going to be mounted next to the batteries, and these smart charge controllers allow Bluetooth, so inside a rocking boat I'll be able to manage and look at what it's doing from the phone. You need about 8 meters of cable. This is 6mm cable. Now I need some P-clamps, terminal connectors for the battery, some shoelace pin terminals to connect to the charge controller. And this was white, this is now black. I've painted this little cable housing where I'm going to be drilling through the hardtop, and some Sully's Solar Flex. So I did a bit of pre-work in the boat before I bought any of the materials, especially forking out $500–600 on solar panels and charge controllers. And the biggest thing for me, if I was going to do it by myself, was knowing where the cables were going to run, and also how I guess how difficult the job was going to be. It turns out it was not too bad. I'll be mounting it on the roof and drilling one hole. It's going to be a bit scary, but basically I've found the existing cable routes for the spotlights that's currently on there. So yeah, I've just removed the roof lining. There's a few screws about the place to remove that. There's a panel here, remove those screws as well, and another panel down here. So basically using some coat hangers, and I've straightened them out. I've basically fed it through here using some tough twine. I've actually just fed that in so I can pull the actual cables through later. That's not too bad going through that flange there. Comes out underneath the gunnel. Hopefully you got enough light there, and then unscrewed that step over there. There's 4 screws on the corner. Feed that through back to here to where the dual batteries are. So I've calculated about 6.5 meters to the batteries, and then you need about 1 meter or so between the battery and the charge controller. So yeah, I've got about 8 meters of cable to get me going. 6mm in thickness, just to make sure there's no degradation in power. So I'm just dry fitting the solar panel, and you can see just due to the size, I've got no choice but to run it east to west or port to starboard. It's going to be mounted on top of the core flute sheets over there, and because I've got the grooves of the tunnels going each way, I'm trying to mark the center of this so that way where the roof's angled, the join of the 2 core flute sheets are right in the center. So I've just marked out the center there with a bit of tape, and that's where the 2 sheets are going to meet. So now I've got that perfectly aligned. I'm just using some painter's tape to hold it in place. I've got the panel right up against the edge and overhanging on the table. So now I'm just go ahead and cut it, trace it all the way around, and then should be good to go. Now I'm about to glue on the core flute on the back of this panel. You can see here it's now been cut to shape. There is a tiny bit of a gap right there, but I'm not too fast. Nothing a bead of glue or something could fix. Either that or just leave it like that. I've got some rubbing alcohol. I'm going to clean the surface before I bond it, and then use some Solar Flex. No doubt it's the same as Sikaflex. This is a bit more expensive, but the guys at the shop recommended to use this, so yeah, it looks like the goods. You see here, UV resistant, long lasting, no primer required. Yeah, so we'll give that a go. Got this in black color. Right, so the solar panels have been drying for the last couple of days. You can see here I'm up on top of the boat, and I've kind of dry fitted it to see the approximate position of, obviously where it's going to sit. I haven't drilled the hole yet, I'll leave that till a little bit later, but you can see the cable will be running across here, making room, a bit of a bend where the MC4 connections connect, and then be another bend into the hole. Not quite sure if it's going to go there at the front or even the back, not sure. Also with the core float, you can see the little channels here, and the reason why I've gone with it being a dark colored boat, it's going to attract a lot of heat obviously, and with the solar panels doing their thing, they will generate a fair bit of heat. So the core float design is really just basically two things. It's airflow and raising it off the roof. So yeah, now it's time to run the cables along the boat to the battery. Right, because I haven't cut the hole yet, I'm gonna leave that till later. I've got the cable here. The MC4 connector end will be the opposite end, so I'm gonna pull the whole cable through. Got it here sitting on the boat. I've actually just using that twine, I've wrapped it around the end of that cable, and then I've wrapped that up and I guess just gave it a smooth pointy end with the electrical tape. So now that it's tied to the end of that twine, pulling down on this end here, it should just start to feed up through that channel. Oh, there you go, I can feel it coming through now. Okay, so there it is. So that's the first bit of cable that's come through now. So yeah, I'll repeat the process with going through that hole there. There's a flange, a grommet there, I'll pull it through. That's pretty easy. That'll come up out through this hole here, that's quite wide. A bit dark there, but yeah, it'll be running across there, back down underneath that step, and then out through the battery. So I'll do that, and then I'll show you the end product. Got the cable pulled all the way through. There should be at least a meter excess here that I'm going to use to wire up controller to the actual batteries. I originally was going to position it there, but what I'm going to do now, I reckon, will be run this cable up here where the battery isolation switch is. Take off this flashing, and I'll probably mount the controller there, I'm thinking. And I don't know, this is probably the worst design on the boat. They've got this, all the terminals there exposed, and you got water and wash and whatnot getting into here. So I've recently just got this all recabled too. So yeah, I'm gonna have to protect that somehow. Okay, at the other end of the cable is just long enough there, so I'll pull the rest of it through once I've cut the hole, and then remove any excess. So we've now marked where the solar panel is going to go. You see here I've used a bit of painter's tape all the way around. That keeps all the edges clean as well when we glue it on top of the hard top. And Jaden here is just cleaning the surface with a bit of alcohol. Alright, so I'm just getting this glue about a half an inch away from the tape. Now doing the same this side as well. Notice here in the corners leaving a bit of a gap. That way air and water can escape from through the corners. But then I've got basically lateral lines going from left to right, so that way if water gets in underneath the roof and the core flute, the water is just going to drain away to each side, because it rises to the middle and angles away to the side. Alright, so we've done a practice on this. This is now for real. Let's go, Jay. So the bottom edge hits here, it drags. Oh, try not to bend too much. It is flexible, but just in case. Drag the bottom end here, keep it in line with the tape, and then we'll slowly drop it, okay?
Yeah.
I'll slowly lay it down.
Okay.
Down first, Jay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then towards me, because it needs to line up to the tape.
Yep.
Okay, go towards. Going on the tape now.
Yeah. On the middle.
Okay.
Okay.
Slowly place it down.
Nice. Do you want to push down the middle?
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so that was last night. Panels now on top of the roof. The solar flex should now have hardened a bit more. I'll probably give it another day to make sure it's properly dry. Doesn't really matter, it's not going anywhere. So for added insurance, I guess, and what I'm most concerned about is that the glue is not all the way to the edge. I want to make sure it prevents any lift during travel. And it's not so much when I'm on the water, it's more the towing on the open highway. You know, we'll do up to 110 kilometers, and that's where I'm concerned we'll get the lift from the front. So I'm just going to use some of this T-Rex tape. This works in temperatures from -70 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, which ticks that box. The actual material itself is kind of rubberized black tape with industrial adhesion, I guess. So I'm going to put this around the panel, more focus around the front to make sure it's fully sealed down. Now, I was looking at mounting options for where I'm going to put the solar controller, as well as protecting it from, I guess, the weather, you know, mostly the salt vapors and stuff while I'm out fishing. The solar charge is not really, or waterproof for that matter. So I was actually going through Kmart the other day, and I found two things which made it really cost effective. The first thing was, there was a 3-pack of cutting boards for 12 bucks. Right, so what I've done is I've used the smaller piece, or the smaller cutting board, and I've glued it to the back of the, just above the batteries where I'm going to mount the solar controller. And secondly, check this. I looked at eBay and it was going to cost me about 40 bucks to ship a waterproof IP rated enclosure. And walking through the home section of Kmart, you wouldn't believe it, but this is a $3 lunchbox. What I'm most worried about is splashes here and there for whatever reason, right? So, and once it's in position, lid goes on and it's somewhat weatherproof. So what I've done here, I've got drill holes where it's going to drill into the cutting board inside the boat, and I've also drilled the relevant holes for where the wiring is going to go. So this particular cable here, this is going to go from solar controller to the battery. You can see there I've only exposed what I needed. I actually didn't end up using the shoelace or the pin connectors because there wasn't enough room. So there's about 2 meters of cable here. Inserted a 20 amp fuse. What I've actually done is I've fused the wiring. Well, I didn't use any connectors actually. I just soldered it and put a heap of tape on it to give it a good bond. And I've just got the battery terminals ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire this up. I'm going to take the fuse out actually, wire up the terminals to the batteries, and then once I'm ready to go, I'll put the fuse in, and that should give power to the controller, and I should be able to start running the Victron app. And you know, there's not going to be any solar, but I'll be able to see what the batteries are doing. So here we are. I've tidied this up a bit. In fact, there's a bit of dust here I need to wipe off before I finish, but there's that cutting board I was talking to you about. I didn't even bother taking off, trimming it or anything. It's basically the full size cutting board. Got a bunch of solar flex which I've used to glue it to there. It's been sitting there for about a day, and what I'm going to do once I've got all the wiring done is, you see the 4 holes there, I'm just going to drill it straight on. Where it's going to be sitting, you can see the battery connectors are to the left, and then the solar connectors are in the middle. What I'm going to do is run the cables in such a way so it doesn't cross. So the battery cables are going to be running here all the way to the back into the battery terminals, and then the solar wiring will come in from underneath and then come in from the top right here, so it comes in and connects to the solar controller. Anyway, let's connect up the terminals. The fuse is not in, so that'll be the last thing I'll do, and then we should see the controller light up once that's done. Now you can see I've wired up the positive to the positive end of the array, and then the negative in the other end of the battery array. Yeah, also make sure, obviously, isolation switch, nothing's drawing power or nothing's live. The batteries are fully isolated when I did that. Also, as I mentioned, the fuses wasn't in. So now I'm pretty happy that that's all connected. If I put on the fuse now, we should see the controller light up. There you go, awesome. Alright, so that's all connected. And now fire up the app and see if I can pick up the controller. So this is the Victron app running on my phone. The solar panel is not currently connected, so there's no voltage or current coming from it. The batteries themselves, they're registering at 12.9 volts, which is showing is quite full, but currently not being charged. There's no other detail around history or trends just yet, but at least I can see what the batteries are doing. Now here's a bit of a tip. Take a screenshot of this table and keep it on your phone. This is a good reference guide to show you what the capacity levels are like in comparison to the voltage. This solar panel's been sitting here for maybe a day or so now. You can see here where I've applied the T-Rex tape. Looks good, but I think I could have done a better job and made sure there was no gaps here, but yeah, I'm not sure. Let's see how that holds anyway. Let me know what you think or any suggestions on how better to do that in the future. These solar panels have about a minimum 5-year life expectancy, and I would expect, given the quality, these aren't cheap. This is almost $400, this panel itself. And because I'm storing it indoors, I'm expecting to get more than 5 years. You know, if anything, maybe 10 plus years. Let's see. I've been umming and ahhing about where I'm going to put the hole, so I'm not even going to bother about how this positions aerodynamically. I'm just going to fucking do it. What I'm thinking is, with this connector on, there'll be a slight bend of cable here, and then I'll have it out. Yeah, I'll have it out basically there. So I was originally going to have it like this, but then that meant there'll be an S bend, a 90-degree bend, and another one there, which is going to be too hard to try to keep in position. So it's going to be like this now. I'll go ahead, tape around this position here, and then I'll cut the holes. Now it's time to feed the wire up. So I'll just put a bit of tape on the end of it, and I'll feed this up to Jaden. So this one here ended up taking 8mm hole. The best way I've managed to do this is put the grommet, pull the wire through, put the grommet on the wire, and then just massage it in. Ah, beautiful, look at that, that's watertight too. Really happy with that. Now it's taken me a bit of time, but I've taken some 10 meters of 10mm corrugated tubing, and I've wrapped that around almost all of the actual wire itself. So you can see here, from the battery, it runs down there, got it all the way under the gunnel, especially where it's exposed, and I've even got it going through here and up to the top. Now that I've done that, I'm just gonna get the end of the wire to the position I need it to be in, and I'm gonna cut as much excess as I can. So here at the back of the boat, the cable going from the solar panel to the controller is now wired in. So you can see there, I've drilled the relevant hole through there, positive to positive, negative to negative, obviously. Now I'm just gonna screw that into place. Once I've just tidied up, cable tied everything, making sure everything's secure. One last thing as well, I noticed the fuse that protects the solar controller from the solar panel is actually there. So I've cut a hole and I've just put a bit of tape in there so I can access it if I'm ever troubleshooting. So pretty much done at the back now. I've screwed in my makeshift lunchbox slash weatherproof enclosure, and she's sitting there nicely. Final things to do now is just really cable tie all the cables, make sure they're nice and secure. Battery terminals also, they've been all insulated with a corrugated tubing. And then finally, let's close this lid. Boom. Right, finally, it feels like now I'm on a home stretch. All the cables have been tidied up now, and just put all the panels back in place. That step over there at the back. Cable tied all the cabling so nothing's loose and it's going to be moving around while I'm underway. And obviously, just as you can see here, I've screwed all the panels back in. Now it's time to finish the front. Solar panel, as you know, is already in place. The key thing is now is just to glue this housing in. This housing here, there's a bit of a indent where you put the glue bead around. You put a bead around all of this. Right, let's put this thing down. Release the pressure. And then it's a matter of just putting it down where it needs to go. Done. So just put a tape around it just to hold it in place. It's been about a day since I glued the enclosure. I've also started gluing these P-clamps. So the idea was not to drill any holes on the roof other than where the wires for the solar enter. So I've glued these P-clamps to hold the wiring, and you can see here I've just added a bit of corrugated tubing. I'll do the same for this, but because it's still a bit wet, I'm just going to leave that for maybe another few hours. Alright, so a few hours later, it's not pretty, but it's waterproof and sealed, I guess. Just now doing the final touches. I've now added the corrugated tubing here for the negative wiring, and I thought I'd just show you how the enclosure works. So basically you've got the two feeds for the two cables, and it's a double-sided cap where this end here, you can see there's a rubber flange which seals the actual connection to the enclosure, and the end cap here has a little grommet inside. So as you tighten this up, it actually closes onto the wire, making a watertight fit. Put it out in the sun, okay? Right, I couldn't help myself. The family's come home early, so I've got the boat hitched up. Let's record my screen, eh? So we're going to do a solar panel test under the sun. It's not full sun at the moment, but at least we'll be able to see if there's any amps coming through the solar panel. You can see there's voltage, but no amps just yet. So I'm just going to slowly drag it out. Okay, I reckon it's in full sun now, and straight away we're getting 6 amps registering on the app. Awesome. Test complete. Well, quick update. Already I've changed something. I wasn't really happy with the cables being glued on the P-clamps along the solar panel. So you can see here I've relocated it onto the edge of the solar panel itself, and I've just cable tied everything together, so reducing any movement, and I'm sure you can agree it's a lot more neater now. Finally, here you remember this stupid silly design, this cavity here at the back where everything's exposed. I won't show you now, I've got no time, but yeah, let me know if you want to see what it looks like in the end. But I've bought an acrylic piece here which covers this section here. It's in black. I'm just going to put a couple of stainless steel hinges, that'll do the job, just to keep the spray away from all this wiring work. So there you go, solar panels working nicely on the boat. Looking at the app, it's pulling about 5 amps on a mid-morning, which is not too bad considering the angle of the sun. But I'm really happy with the install. Now I have the Victron MPPT controller. I can see the battery and what it's doing remotely from my phone. And the solar panel, well, it didn't come off on the way to the ramp, so that's a good start. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something from it. Let me know if you got any tips on how to better do the install. I already have some ideas on how I could do this better next time, but for now I'm happy with it. So we'll catch you next time. Thanks for joining us.